another episode of Going All In, Get the Edge You Need to Succeed. My name is Dr. Erin McKinley, and today we have another awesome spotlight session with a local dietetic internship here in Louisiana. And we have with us today Ms. Marsha Piacun and Kellia O'Malley from Tulane University. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So before you get into your presentations, just each tell us a little bit about yourselves, your journey to where you got to Tulane and your journey to today.
Kellia, go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kellia O'Malley. My journey, I guess, started when I decided to come to New Orleans for my undergraduate degree. At the time, I was interested in psychology. And while I was a student, I was a student during Hurricane Katrina, and that sort of displaced me. So I was in a new city for a temporary period. And during that semester, really started thinking about the connection between what we eat and our mental and physical health and well-being, and thinking about how much that was impacting me and my experience as well as family members during that time period. So I took one nutrition class during undergrad and just really got more and more interested in learning about it and what I could do with that. So that kind of led me thinking about nutrition and psychology and health behavior and behavior change, really led me to think about pursuing public health, and saw that there was a Master of Public Health with a focus in nutrition at Tulane, so I could stay in town in New Orleans and continue my education. So that's what I did. I then completed a DPD program through the University of Alabama. I was born and raised in Alabama, so no territorial competition there with LSU. And so I did that, completed my Master's in Public Health, started working in research, public health nutrition research at Tulane. That's where I've been for the last 10 years now. And I continued my education. I was working with a lot of faculty and researchers, so I decided that I would continue my education. Just finished my PhD in the spring of this year, and am on the faculty now in the School of Public Health, and continue to do research and work with a lot of community-based food and nutrition organizations in New Orleans. My research and short practice interest is more on the food and nutrition policy side, and thinking about policies and programs that support food security and address food insecurity. So that's where a lot of my work and interest has been. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit more as we get into the presentation about the specific programs that I work with within the school. And I'm glad to be here to chat with y'all today. Marsha?
Okay, my turn. At 18 years old, I went to the University of Texas after growing up in New Orleans. Went to University of Texas in Austin and majored in nutrition. One of those people that had an idea that young what I wanted to major in. So after that, I came back home and started on a master's in business administration at Loyola in New Orleans, and did the first class of the dietetic internship at Turo. So, I was from New Orleans and ended up staying. So right after internship, I had gotten a job at Charity, the big building that's still boarded up all these years after Katrina, and worked there for 5 years, feeding the student nurses who lived in the building right there in that complex for a couple of years, and then created the dietetic traineeship program for them and ran that for 3 years in my 20s. That was quite an experience with just interning in New Orleans, I knew just about everybody and what was going on after a year's internship. So it was probably easier for me, and nobody with more than 20 dietitians at Charity at the time really was that interested in doing it. So it ended up with me doing it, and I really did enjoy it. After that, I stayed home for 5 years and then had 3 kids. And then when I went back to work, I started consulting. So after a few years, it built up to, having a consulting business and having people working with me, the dietitians, lots of businesses that don't have a full-time dietitian need at least a consultant. So it ended up being quite a bit, and I still do a little bit of that now. I'm afraid to totally let go after all these years, but I really did enjoy it. And, lots of nursing homes, lots of dialysis, small hospitals, and Head Start and juvenile detention, and, a lot of things. Our profession is good that, if you do end up with kids and you still want to work, you still can do it, very part-time and still be, a valid part of the profession. Something to think about as you get older and go on with your career. So then came Katrina in 2005. I was a consultant and had students from Tulane come to some of the places I was working at as a preceptor before that. So the program was closed for a year, and the director at the time ended up moving. She lost her house. Her husband lost his job and house and all, and they ended up moving to Texas. So like a year later, they were looking for a new director and started interviewing people. So that's when I started. And there was hardly no places that were really fully functional. I think Tulane Hospital had a kitchen in a tent. University Hospital was getting food from West Jefferson and Marrero. A lot of places hadn't reopened or hadn't, fully reopened and all too. So it was definitely a challenge just to find enough places at that point to have students. The program was 6 months at that point, and you had to have a master's. Then 3 years later, they changed the regulations and lengthened the time of internships, and also we changed to 1 class a year, and it was like 16 instead of the 8 and 8, made 16 for the 10 months. And then as things were getting desperate, so many people weren't getting in, they begged for people to take more. So that's when we ended up with taking more students every year and ended up with a total of 20, which is where we are right now. So I think that's enough about me. If you have any questions about, consulting or, working part-time, doing contract work, any of those things, you can ask me at the end. It's a good way to meet a lot of people, and the internship is a great way to meet a lot of people too, and that's something that could affect your career and life, knowing people and knowing who does what in the community where you're living. All right.
All right, so I'll let you get into your presentation about the internship program.
All right. I'll start with just describing what's on the website. I keep adding things. The person who does it I'm sure she groans every time she gets an email from me, something else to add on, because I have students do some things and say, we need to add this. It really came out good. So, there's no time to look at everything on there, but if you just go to Tulane Dietetic Internship, you can find that, if you start scrolling through the School of Public Health, there's so many things, it's harder to get through that way. We have the mission statement, all of the info about diecast and D&D Digital, the brochure, and the things that I'm going to go over are coming directly from the program brochure, which is in full on there. It has like a blue cover to it and has like the descriptions and requirements and all. You're not going to remember with so many little details being thrown at you. You definitely won't remember that, but that's, like a reference to go back and look at. The application video that we require, those questions are on the website. The Tulane 2-page application that comes to Tulane along with the video is on the website also. The referral info to the MPH degree that Kellia is going to talk to you about is on there too, so you can get a little taste of that and see if you want to continue. She probably has more that I haven't added to my website yet. Several PowerPoints. One has photos from previous classes. It's almost 90 slides at this point now, but a lot of students from LSU, you'll see their photos on there. A video one class several years ago really came out well too, and every person in that class participated in that. And then last year's group did like a virtual open house. This is the front of their presentation, but I didn't use their whole presentation. But they told the audience why they should or shouldn't want to come to Tulane because of just the way it's set up, and some personalities might not be real happy with all the jumping around and so many things going on and all that. So they went more into detail about who should apply. So, okay, we'll go on into the info about the program. So the internship at Tulane lasts 10 months and has approximately 1,360 hours of supervised practice in community, MNT, and food service. It's considered community, but there is still probably a few more weeks of clinical, of MNT, inpatient and outpatient, just a lot more community than an average internship. The next program begins August 23rd of 2021 and completed on June 24th of 22. Seems like a long way off, but I guess it really isn't. Supervised practice is completed 4 to 5 days a week, usually Monday through Friday. Field trips, class meetings are scheduled on some Fridays throughout the year, not every Friday. Occasionally there'll be something on a weekend, but it's not too often. Like the breeding course, the study course for the RD exam, maybe on one weekend day. Sometimes it's been on both Saturday and Sunday. And the Rouse's dietitian was having some taste testing and mini fairs in the stores before. They're still on virtual, so she's not doing it, but their busiest day is Saturday, so the students were working with her. We're doing that. The rest of the rotations are like Monday through Friday. We have a 2-week orientation that, is a time to collect all the things that I've asked the students to bring, and you should be registered already before that, and you do get course credit that is 6 hours for the 2 semesters, and so it's 12 hours for the whole year, and that can be applied to the MPH program at Tulane. So during orientation, we go over the manual, the policies, curriculum, what they're going to be doing the year, how to read the schedule. We do some visiting of facilities, some field trips, some speakers, lots of different things during that time. Usually Labor Day's in that orientation and as a day off. So then after that, rotations begin, and some students go to M&T, some go to community, some to food service. It's not done in blocks. It's very hard to have multitudes of preceptors and 20 students to try to make sure the preceptors are going to be there when they think they're going to be there, and the students can get to do everything they're supposed to. So the clinical rotation, that is the first and the basis of other things, is 5 weeks. Like this year we have it for 6 weeks. So I want to see if the preceptors like it or think that 5 weeks was enough, but usually it's been 5 weeks. So that's learning how to work as a clinical dietitian in a hospital. And then you go back to that same hospital within the last 2 months to do staff relief. So you should be much more capable after being in rotations the whole year by the time you get back, and you're working with the same people potentially, so they can see if hopefully you've improved significantly between the 2 rotations. So the other rotations are 1 to 3 weeks long, a lot of 1-week rotations. So you can get in usually at least 25 rotations during the year. And the interns work sometimes independently if there's not enough room for 2 interns plus the staff at places, but most often it's 2 different interns going to most rotations except for M&T. Mostly there's 1 at a time, except like Oshner main campus that's so big that they can deal with more than 1 at a time and not have their dietitians overloaded. So they run around doing all of those things until we get to Thanksgiving, and then they have off a day or 2. Usually it ends up being 2, but not the whole week like some programs. And then they continue until we get to right before Christmas, and there's 2 weeks off then that cover Christmas and New Year's Day. However, the weeks fall. Usually it's a few days before Christmas that the vacation starts. So then we're almost halfway through at that point, and then they come back the first week in January, register for spring semester, another 6-hour class, and Mardi Gras in that period, and Easter. And there's usually, like a day off or 2 days off for some of those, but no more big break after Christmas until the end of the year. So when we have the Louisiana State meeting, which is often in Baton Rouge or Lafayette, the students go to that. We don't require, occasionally the students will want to go to the national meeting in the fall, but we don't require it. Do require to go to the state meeting. At least it's a taste of an association type meeting and meeting people and just seeing what's possible. And I'll even though it's nothing like the national meeting, but we do require that. And that same week we'll have the RD exam course. And we use the breeding course and the other programs that are fairly near will send their students also. So we have like 4 internships being taught that week. So they still have a couple of months to study before the end of anyone's program. So that's usually like the beginning of April. That we do that. So then we have a bunch of tests between then and the end of the year based on the info from that RD exam prep. So then we get to the last week and have an exit exam, and I base mine on the breeding course. It makes the students start studying early to have all of those tests. Sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't, because probably the people didn't concentrate that hard to remember it for 2 months. But those that did and can take their exam much earlier have a lot less stress in their life once they've finished all of that. So we'll have that exit exam and exit interview, an end of the year survey, and portfolio review. And the portfolio is just making an online review of each competency and what the student did to fulfill that competency. So the program and all internship programs and DPDs are all based on competencies that the directors have to come up with ways to meet in order to meet the requirements that they give us. So you'll be hearing competencies over and over again, more than you want to hear. But that way we're fairly sure that you know enough to be able to go and work as a dietitian when you complete this. So our graduation is usually at noon on a Friday, like the last Friday in June, and family, friends, and preceptors are invited. It's usually a lot of fun. Okay. So the next page is the list of the rotations and hours and some of the facilities that we have. The preceptors there work with the students. So this is also in that brochure, and it's variable, slightly variable too. Like this year, I have a couple of things that are 2 weeks that were 1 week, and vice versa. So don't hold me totally to this, but it's probably 95% what actually happens every year. And so the MNT is the longest, and then some of the other rotations that we have are mostly outpatient, renal, inpatient, and outpatient transplant. Bariatrics is definitely outpatient, and pediatrics inpatient and outpatient. NICU is inpatient. No AIDS task force is outpatient. Oncology is a combination, inpatient and outpatient too. Cardiac rehab is outpatient. And research is the public health research at Tulane. The main squeeze we added, one of the previous students that has started this company with her family. It's a juice company, and they are starting to open places all over the U.S. And then WIC, LSU Ag, the Wellness at Ashna Fitness, Council on Aging, Developmental Disabilities. The Geauxing Center is Culinary Medicine, and that we do have every year 2 weeks. Second Harvest, the Head Start, Hospital Food Service. Lambeth House is a 3-tiered elderly facility and has fine dining with a chef, long-term care, more regular nursing homes. School Food Service is the food service plus nutrition education for the K through 12. And specialty is intern's choice. So if there's something you're really wanting to do that we don't have a rotation for, then you can choose that. If you really loved one of the rotations, you only got to spend a weekend, you could go back and work more in that area. So it's up to you. Some people go out of town, some people go home, generally at a place where they have some place to stay, so it doesn't end up being so expensive. But, it's like extremely variable as to students' choice in that type of rotation. So we have some others that are, more in the part-time. Just a few people go to corrections, a dietitian in Lafayette, and a psych hospital across the lake, and Propeller, 2 of the previous students are working there, and they work along with small businesses to help promote their businesses. So we have the vacation is the 2 weeks, and graduation last week. We generally don't have rotations unless you missed a few days and you're trying to make that up. Okay. The next is tuition and fees, and the tuition is $9,000 of $4,500 paid in the fall and again in the spring. The application fee to Tulane is $40, and the DICAS is $50 plus a fee for each place you're applying. And D&D Digital, the computer matching fee is $55. Health insurance is mandatory if you're still on your parents. You don't have to get the Tulane insurance, but it is available close to $3,000 for the year. Professional liability insurance is still extremely cheap, like $24 for $1 million coverage. So that shows me that dietitians aren't getting sued in great numbers, which is a good thing. The LDA meeting and other conferences are probably less than the 400 to 500 people. Usually end up sharing a room. If it's just in Baton Rouge, they may drive back and forth. The RD exam course is like $500, and that is for the 3-day teaching to dietitians come and teach it, the manual, and the flashcards. And books and supplies, it depends on, if you get a hand-me-down from somebody, if you're ordering things, about $150. Uniforms, some of the students, a lot of the students are so glad to not have to wear the shirts anymore. They turn them back into me to pass on. So, but they're not expensive. The green or white polos, and you have the logo put on by a uniform shop, and that's not very expensive. black slacks or khaki slacks, non-skid shoes. So it's not a real costly uniform. Housing, it's going to depend on where you want to live and, how much you want to spend. Often students will get together and rent someplace bigger, and it ends up being less, and they have more space. Car expenses, you have to have a car with places all over South Louisiana. Definitely not going to get there in public transportation, and New Orleans is not wonderful. Immunizations, it again depends on your insurance. Lots and lots of immunizations. Every hospital has their list. And, if it's anywhere, I make everybody have everything, titers and the TB test. And Tulane's doing the drug screen along with the background check. And we're having CPR, so a few things that Tulane pays for, the CPR and the background check and the drug screen. And the academy dues for student membership is very inexpensive too, like around $55, or maybe it's a little bit lower now. So and then the requirements are very similar to other programs. You need your DICAS application, the verification statement from your DPD, or the intent to complete if you're not finishing until spring. Bachelor's degree does not have to be the nutrition degree, but if it is, that's the major thing. If you didn't major in nutrition, the first degree, then you can get the coursework, and that's considered your DPD courses, and that would be the place that would issue the verification statement. A Tulane 2-page application. Most of the things are on the DICAS. It's very brief in comparison. The video answering questions, that is on the website, and you either send me a jump drive, or most people are putting it on YouTube, and that was way easier to view. So, and they're really cute too. It's nerve-wracking to have something else to do, but it really adds a different dimension from what we were getting with just paper applications. And we do get a lot of people from all over the country, and I said, I really don't want to make all these people have an added expense if they can't afford easily to come to New Orleans to interview. So I never did make that a requirement. So the GPA is not less than 2.8 on a 4.0, 3 letters of recommendation, a statement of career goals, just your letter that you would include in DICAS. If you're a foreign student, with English was not your initial language, then the TOEFL scores. The original transcripts, if you're accepted. So I'll accept like those digital ones or copies, and until we get to the point that you're accepted, then I have to have every transcript that is official at that point. Non-refundable $40 processing fee sent to Tulane. The selection committee reviewing and recommending and participating in computer matching, which is on the D&D Digital website. And there's links and referrals to all of that on the Tulane website. So this is basically just pulling together everything that I had just talked about. So it's like a checklist as you're actually doing your application, that you can just make sure that everything's included before you submit. So that is my basic info. If anyone has any questions, if you want to wait until Kellia's talk, or Okay.
Yeah, we can wait for questions
Okay.
after all of the presentations are over.
Great. Let's see. It's going again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a new, exciting sort of interwoven program option that we have that allows you to complete a Master's of Public Health in Nutrition alongside the Dietetic Internship within about 2 years. It's around 25 months. We have a couple of pathways that you can do this. So you can either complete the MPH in Nutrition first and then apply to a pre-select slot into our internship program directly, or you can go through the national match, select Tulane, complete the Tulane internship first, and then enter the MPH Nutrition, carrying with you those 12 credit hours that Marsha mentioned that you get as part of the internship process. And as Marsha mentioned, and there's a link at the bottom of these slides that we will send out following this, you can find all of these instructions and links to detailed information about the application process. I'm just going to go through sort of a high-level overview today. But again, you can either apply to the MPH Nutrition program first, and that application process is through the SOFIS system. And you just make sure that you indicate interest in, we have a specific track. We have two program options to get the MPH in Nutrition. One is a general public health track. The other one is this MPH Nutrition MCH leadership track that we designed to allow students who have completed a DPD or bachelor's in nutrition and dietetics to be able to count those 12 credits that you earn as part of the dietetic internship towards the 45, 46 hours of graduate level courses that you need to fulfill the MPH program requirements. So this is, that track is called the MPH Nutrition MCH leadership track. So again, you have the option to apply to Tulane, indicating interest in this track option. And in that case, you are able to apply directly into our internship program through one of those pre-select slots. Or alternatively, you can go through the traditional application process for our internship through the DICUS, making sure that you're also indicating interest, if you have it, in completing the MPH program as well in that application, both to the internship. And then you can either, at the same time, you can also apply to the MPH program. And if you're accepted, you can defer up to a year for your start date. Or you can, I'll go through the timeline of the application process for the MPH program in just a minute. You have the option to apply to the Tulane internship through DICUS if you get matched, complete the internship, and then you could apply that year into the MPH program after that. And for those students who are in this MCH Nutrition Leadership track, we also have a funded leadership training program that you're also eligible for. So I did want to tell you a little bit about that because that does provide some funding for students who are accepted into that program. It includes, in addition to the coursework that you complete during your MPH program, we also provide some enhanced training opportunities for you as a trainee. So this includes some additional community, clinic, and government experiences. You do 80 hours of research with one of our Tulane faculty who has a focus in nutrition. You'll do some teaching, doing 2 guest lectures with some of our undergraduate public health nutrition classes, and then have ongoing leadership development. We meet as a group monthly. I also do one-on-ones with all of the trainees in our program and provide additional leadership development opportunities as they arise throughout the time in the program. As I mentioned, this does come with some funding. So there's a $2,000 taxable stipend for all trainees who are accepted into this program. That's administered in $2,500 installments each semester that you're with us. We also provide conference travel support for at least one meeting while you're a student with us. So this could be for FNCE, it could be to the American Public Health Association as one of the big public health conferences. We also have connection and have faculty and students who have participated in the Association of State and Public Health Nutritionists in the past as a really great networking and leadership development opportunity for students. And we encourage our trainees, while you're doing this research experience with one of our faculty members, that you're also working to develop a research product. So this might be an abstract that you would submit to FNCE or APHA or another conference, ideally, and then we would, again, financially support your travel, also providing, some practice presentations if you're going to be presenting, some networking tips, that kind of thing for you. So as I mentioned, this is sort of an add-on even for the MPH program, and it is a federally funded program, so there are stricter eligibility requirements. So it does require any funded trainee to either be a current dietitian or somebody who has completed a DPD program is eligible to complete an internship. So if you are in our MPH program in this track in which you are planning to also complete your internship through Tulane, you also meet that eligibility. This is a funded program that's funded by the Health Resources and Services Administration that through the federal government supports workforce development in the health sector and has a specific interest in supporting women, children, and families. So one of the additional eligibility requirements is that you have somewhat of an interest in working with that population. And again, because it's federally funded, there is a citizenship requirement to be eligible for the funding, which is separate from your eligibility for completing the MPH program itself. So just to walk you through a little bit of what the timeline would look like if you're interested in doing this interwoven master's and internship option. The priority application deadline for the MPH, so if you're thinking about applying to the MPH starting next academic year, January 15th of 2021 is the deadline for the Masters of Public Health program that guarantees that your application will be considered for all scholarships and funding that's available through the School of Public Health. And then if you apply by March 1st, you may or may not be considered for a scholarship, but that's the last deadline in which you're guaranteed to have your application reviewed. And then the application on top of that for the funded training program is slightly behind the timeline of the application for the MPH itself. So we have a March 15th application deadline for the training program. Part of acceptance into the training program is that you've been admitted into the MPH program for the school. So we need to allow time for your application to be reviewed and accepted before we can accept you into the training program. And then it's a pretty quick communication after that. We let you know if you've been selected as one of the funded trainees by the beginning of April, and then ask for a decision to be made by mid-April on whether or not you're planning to attend. We have around 5 funded slots for the training program each year, so that is a competitive process. We have a larger number of slots for students who are interested in the MPH itself. And again, sort of putting those two together, the timeline, depending on which order you would be interested in completing the 2 programs. So if you're planning to do the MPH first, again, you want to be paying attention to the School of Public Health application timeline 1st. So again, that would be a January 15th priority application if you would like to be considered for scholarship funds through the school. And there's a link that's directly in the PowerPoints that we'll send out that you can access that. And I can also send a link to the school admission information where you can find tuition rates and all of those details there. So if you are doing this MPH Nutrition Leadership Track, we designed the program that you would begin your MPH coursework during the summer semester. So if you're applying to start next academic year, you would apply in January for a summer 21 start date when you would begin your MPH coursework. And then by the first of the following year, you would apply directly into the Tulane internship. At that point, to begin the internship in August of 22. So you would take MPH coursework the summer and fall of 21, spring of 22, and then start the internship August of 22, completing both programs by June of 2023. And then the flip, if you're doing the internship first and then completing the MPH program, you would follow the application deadlines that Marsha spoke through, applying through the Tulane internship through DICUS, beginning the internship August of 21, and then you would make sure that you applied to the Tulane MPH and nutrition program through SOFIS by January of 22, beginning that MPH coursework over the summer for the following 3 semesters and completing your coursework and all of your applied practice experience requirements by August of 23. So again, around 25-month period, either way that you complete those programs. So again, that was kind of a high level overview. There's lots of nitty-gritty details that are on the website and that Marsha and I are happy to always talk through with you. And I think we're happy to take questions at this point, or Erin.
Yeah, so I'm going to go into my top 5 questions, but I have way more than that. So I might sneak in a few more that I know the students probably have. So my first one is this. Okay, so the way the students are interpreting your pre-select option is that you get into not just the MPH program, but both the MPH and the DI, and it appears that that's not correct. You're pre-selecting into MPH, you start it, and then you are eligible for the pre-select for the DI you already have. So the student still has to apply to the DI to get in.
But not through DICAS.
Oh, yeah, okay. So a lot of
so it's a
right
paper application that's due but before January 1st, and they know before they have to apply to DICAS that they know in January if they're in. So they don't apply in February. They already know they will start the internship the next fall. So it's pushed it up quite a bit, but it's also a relief not to have to do the matching and feed everything in and, wait for delays and all that, and put everything in one envelope and either hand it to me, stick it in my mailbox, and that's it. Then I review it and let them know right after. Yeah.
So I know for those students watching right now, there's still no guarantee that if you go into the MPH program that you will get into the internship.
That hadn't happened. Let's just say.
Okay.
Yeah, and they let you increase the numbers. Like I had 3 a year before they started with leadership program and all too. It was I never had more than that number. So now that they have a special program and stipends and more interest now too with people feeling like they really need to have a master's, even though it's still a few years away from mandatory. I think a lot more people are thinking in those terms, and also I just did increase it to a maximum of 8 of the 20 could be from that program. So, it may be like 5 or 6 this year for next year. And, it could be 2, it could be 4, it could be, whatever, just whoever decides that's what they, that's the way they want to do it. I also have some people who are interns now that want to do it. So when they finish, they will start the program. So, it's hard to say who's going to be in what, but we're not having 25 people applying for 3 slots or 5 slots or 8 slots now.
Okay.
And that's also part of the reason why we encourage students who are applying into the interwoven program options to make sure that you put in your personal statements and as part of your application that you are interested in completing both the internship and the MPH, so that Marsha and I eventually see that and can plan. We're planning and sharing information, 1 and 2 years out sometimes, to make sure that Marsha knows ahead of time the number of students who are eligible and interested in potentially one of those slots.
All right, so I'll get into my 5 questions that Marsha's already cheated and watched some previous episodes.
Cheated.
So
I still had to think.
I know. So you've been doing this a long time, Marsha. So what is one thing that in particular that you really love to see on personal statements?
Well, I think the reason why you want to be a dietitian, and that's pretty common, that just about everybody does that anyway. Some people have a huge personal statement and go into all kinds of business that they shouldn't be telling people about families and all that. And some will tell just enough. So, it's hard to say exactly what you should put. And, some people are more open than others about their feelings. But I think what people want to know is why. So sometimes people think they want to do something for a reason, and then they end up liking or disliking that as they actually get through all of this.
Okay, so we were talking earlier about resumes.
Right.
So true or false, resumes should be 1 page and 1 page only.
False. I think in a lot of circumstances, you're not going to have enough in 1 page to get everything that you want to put. You don't have to put real great detail, but, I've seen some nice resumes that give you a lot of good info, and they go on to 2 pages. So, and it is easier to follow than going through the DICAS application looking for all the volunteer things. Some people put their volunteer experiences and list them. They'll put their special skills, if they took some courses that were unrelated, more business type skills, things like that you're not even going to see on the DICAS info. So I'd say up to 2 pages, not multiples, but definitely more than 1.
All right. So what is something that an applicant may do either in their application, in their video, maybe in chatting with you at an open house that's kind of a red flag for you, that you would kind of feel that they're not a good fit for your program?
Some of them talk too much in great detail about personal issues and family issues, but more personal issues, and why they wanted to do this or that because of something that happened to them. In some circumstances, it's really more then you should be sharing. And you're kind of afraid of some heavy psychological possibility problems, that you don't know, because you don't know enough about that. But it just kind of says, oh, I wonder how this person survives some of this and how it's going to affect their learning and just how they live after going through some things. So some things medical and some personal and social and behavioral.
So not too much of a sob story.
Not too much. a little bit's okay.
So what is one area of the program that you're actively working on to make even better for your interns?
Right now I'm just, praying that everybody comes back to work that isn't back yet with all the COVID stuff. The areas that we don't have anything in the eating disorder realm would be nice, but there's not a whole lot of that going on in this area, and the research that keeps changing depending on what is available at Tulane. And say Tulane, you don't have research, but it's not people that would take on 20 students necessarily. So Kellia worked with them. She was doing some of her research, but she's in a different position right now. And one of the other professors that's in our department is going to work with the students this year, but it's not like a major project that can go on and on. So I feel like those are weak areas that could improve.
Okay, so my last question, I guess, and both Marsha and Kellia can answer this if they'd like. The 3 best adjectives or descriptors, so Marsha, for you, to describe the internship aspect of the program.
I'd say it's a variety. It's about a variety of rotations. So the experiences are a great variety, and the exposure, so many different people, and different places and different people, and just being in New Orleans is, a different exposure in itself. But just, the ability to see that, people behave differently and eat differently in different places. And then just having increased knowledge and abilities from what they learned during the year would be, so they're definitely more knowledgeable in their profession by the time they get through the program.
So Kellia, what are some 3 descriptors to describe the MPH program?
Sure. I think one of the first words that came to mind was individualized. Our programs really give you as students the opportunity to kind of self-direct some of the learning that you're doing, and especially in this training program as part of the MPH too, you have a lot of opportunity to really dive in, get experience with types of organizations that you might want to work with in the future. And I think students, it gives you the opportunity to get out of it what you want. So it kind of lets you take that initiative on, and students who do take that initiative, I think, have some of the best experiences in the program. Connected would be another one. I think both, and I would say, I think through the internship as well, we have a lot of community partners who work throughout the city and region that we have pretty long-standing partnerships with, or who are alumni of one or both of our programs. And I think it gives, again, our students then have that opportunity to connect with those organizations and alumni of our programs for networking and career development opportunities. Third one, maybe fast-paced. I think especially with this new program option that we have where you're completing both aspects within 25 months, that's basically, we're taking what typically takes students 2 years to get through the MPH program, and you're completing it in 12 to 18 months. So I think it will require, for students to really thrive in that, you definitely need to be somebody who is great with time management and can really balance and prioritize a lot of that sort of intense time period to really thrive in the program.
Okay, and I'll continue with you, Kellia. What do you think are 3 really good adjectives to describe the ideal applicant for pre-select into the MPH? So for applicants into the MPH program, let's see. I did not see this ahead of time, so I'm thinking on the spot here. 3 adjectives. Again, I think initiative is definitely something that often will stick out to me for students. Not everybody feels this way. I like to hear from students, prospective students who are interested. So encourage you, again, I know I heard from at least one student, but please reach out to me, contact me by email. Happy to set up individual Zooms with people. I think taking that step and taking that initiative to learn more about the program, ask questions before you even start the application process, to me that really stands out for folks. I think, again, specifically for the training aspect, applying to that part of the program too, really being able to communicate in your personal statement and in other communications that you have, your interest in public health and in community nutrition, and specifically working with women, children, and families, and thinking about how that all kind of wraps together, and being able to communicate that well, I think is really important. And again, sort of staying on top of deadlines and timelines as part of this. That's going to be something throughout the 2 years or year and a half that you're with us that is important, and also as part of the application process. So I think just definitely being mindful of that, getting things turned in on time, is definitely something to prioritize. All right, perfect. All right, Marsha, your 3 best descriptors of your ideal applicants.
Well, definitely the flexibility with 25 or more rotations and going hither and yon, and people changing jobs and people having babies and just all kinds of things that happen that we're already changing schedules, and the students just started because of things that happen with preceptors and all too. So if you aren't flexible, you're going to be very apprehensive and miserable during this year. The responsibility and good work ethic. Some people haven't worked before, and not that they don't know how to, but it's like they're just starting. And if you have that type of personality that you just want to do what's right and get it done, that it makes it a lot easier. Sometimes we can't tell who fits in that category, but those that are irresponsible and still very childlike are miserable and make me semi-miserable, not totally, but just trying to tell them, you need to turn this in, you need to do this. It's like you would think that they would be more responsible, but hopefully some of this is just COVID residue, and we'll be back to people being more responsible and having a real good work ethic and professional behavior. So, that's something that, some people just act that way in general, but, if, you're young and never worked or never been in a hospital or other places that, you are considered a medical professional, then, you might need to view what the other people in the hospital are doing and the preceptors, how they deal with other people, how they conduct talking to patients and other medical professionals.
Perfect. All right, so we have some questions from the students. I'm just going to go through the chat. And our first question, can undergraduate students, I'm assuming seniors, graduating seniors, apply to the DI pre-select on January 1st?
No.
So, Kellia, did you mean the MPH, the master's part, or the DI part?
Actually, either or. I think that she said that from my understanding, the MPH students would apply for the DI that January 1st of the following year, but
right.
Can a undergraduate senior like myself apply during the pre-select for the Dietetic Internship this year?
Not for the internship, not until you're a graduate student already. Okay. So the only people that are applying that, are starting to work on their applications now are presently in the MPH program at Tulane.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. All right, so you accept 20, but how many applicants do you get every year? How many applications?
Usually it was like right over 100. Last year was maybe like 52 or 53. A lot of places had much lower applications last year.
Are you anticipating numbers to be lower this year because of COVID? Because maybe people are apprehensive about an internship experience while things are still shaky?
I don't think so, because they're applying for next year. So hopefully, we don't start until fall. So I think at that point, we better have some vaccines and less people getting COVID, hopefully anyway. So no, I don't think it's gonna be that. I'm not really sure of the major reason for it dropping, except that there's a huge number of distance programs and SB programs now, so there's less people, and we know that there's less people not getting in, and reapplying the second, third, and fourth time. The match rate is definitely way above the 50% that it stayed at for years. So you don't have all that residual. I've had people that applied, 3 and 4 times before they got in. So that's not happening anymore. And then some years it was just a difference in how many people were graduating too. But the most I've seen in recent years is like a little over 5,000 were applying nationwide in the fall match. I mean, in the spring match. And it's just a few hundred in the fall. And then this past year, it was a little over 3,000. It was a significant difference in numbers with that. And then I looked up a few weeks after the second round was over, and there was still 100 places that had openings at that point. So this year was a very different situation. And that was for, and trying to think if that would have, no, it wouldn't have been really affected at that point, because applications were due in February, and the COVID stuff really didn't hit until a month later, as far as people deciding they weren't gonna, carry through or wait to apply and all to see, because they might have probably figured that they would be finished with the COVID by the time they started a program. Unfortunately, that didn't happen either. So I don't think, I was thinking some people might not want to start the program in the fall because of things, and I didn't have anybody who did because of that. One because of other financial problems with her family and all, couldn't come at the last minute, but not directly COVID related.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to go to a question to stay along the lines of applying and getting accepted. So I think this would be a Kellia question. If a student gets accepted in the pre-select position, I'm assuming the master's, how long do they have to tell you yes if they get it?
So there's two parts. So when I'm talking about pre-select, I'm talking about you're a student who's already in the master's program, and then you apply directly into the internship. And in that case, that's Marsha, correct me if I'm off with this, you have to apply by January 1st.
Right.
Correct? And then when you need to know within a month, right, of that time?
I will let them know before February.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about a senior that applies to the master's early for that? Like, when would they find out, and then how long do they have to?
Yeah, great question. It will vary. So we do applications on a rolling basis. So the application is open now if you would like to apply. And the applicants are reviewed also on a rolling basis. I put a link to the overall admissions for the school in the chat box here. I don't want to misstate any dates. So I would definitely direct you to the website where all of the dates are included. There is that January 15th application deadline to prioritize to make sure that you're considered for all scholarships. And they're notified pretty frequently. I would say you'd probably hear something within a month or so. It may be a little bit longer, but we ask, I think there is that the April deadlines that I included in there are also standard with the school. As far as if you're offered scholarships or funding, there is a deadline where those offers expire by, which I think is in mid-April. So we just ask that, so you would know obviously before then, and then ask that you confirm your expectation to attend or not, so that if you are offered funding and you choose to go somewhere else, that frees up funding for other students who may also qualify. So that's sort of what that timeline looks like. And there's lots more details on that on the admissions site.
And I will include the link to the admission site in the video as well for those that are viewing at home right now. All right, so I'm going to go to the last question in the chat. So with the pandemic, Marsha, what did you really have to change on a whim when shutdown happened? Like, did you move stuff to online? Are students doing more like virtual type rotations? What are some of the changes that are occurring?
Right. Well, last year was, I won't say a total disaster, but a mini disaster, having to stop and, everybody trying to get one course online. And I'm saying, I got 20 people going to 20 different places. How do you do this? And no places to send them. So and breeding course was coming up, and we had never done that. And the main presenter had never done it on Zoom either. So that was challenging for all of us to figure out how to use Zoom quickly. So 50 almost finished interns could have a basis for their studying. So I felt a little bit of pressure with learning that. After that, the people that are in NDEP were sending info and putting it on a Google Drive, and also like lots of home study things, extra case studies, things that you could get credit for that included not just reading something, so it wouldn't be in the didactic category. It would be more considered supervised practice, case studies, individualizing things and all. But we're starting with a drive of those things so people would at least have some way to get hours. So we started with tracking all the hours they had since the beginning of the year to see, then they reduced it from 1,200 to 1,000 as far as minimum hours of supervised practice. So that helped a little bit too. We still went on and did not finish until the end of June. So, my students had more than 1,000 hours, but definitely not the 1,360. So, with that, I had a free 6 weeks to EHR Go, which is a lot of practice assessments. And so we did a bunch of that. So that was answering questions and coming up with PES statements and doing like case study type work on different things with that. So I gave them a lot of assignments and that, which was a good review. And like a couple of people had just started MNT, so they really didn't have their in-depth clinical even at that point in the beginning of March. So we did a lot of that. So that helped to kind of fill in with, what the students were doing. And then some of the students start calling preceptors to see if they had anything they could do, like the weeks they were really supposed to go with them. And some preceptors were just, so good and creative that, they had 20 or 25 hours worth of work that they could do and submit to them. So that was neat. It was more than I expected that would do that too. So that was last year's group. So by the time we got to June, the students could go back to staff relief. The hospitals were opening up, so that was wonderful for them to end on a much higher note. And so when we got to the group that just recently started, we do have all the hospitals that were doing, it's probably like 10 or 11 hospitals that take students for MNT and some other clinical that are back accepting students. So that was wonderful. Some of the outpatient clinics and some of the community is not back at the same level. Some of the people are still working at home or working very part-time. Some places aren't allowing anyone to come in the office yet, I guess because of not having real offices in some places and just too many people in a room type things. So that's why the schedule's changed a little bit for this year. A few things I did for 2 weeks that were 1 week. So a couple of the clinical areas that should have been 2 weeks anyway, just didn't have the ability to do it at that point. I just said, we're going to have it. That's all. So it's probably ending up being a little more clinical than it was and a little less community for this class. I probably by next year we'll be back to more like it was. Renal, the major companies were shutting all students out until the end of the year. So we'll have to see. One one smaller company I have, the dietitians, but I couldn't say you need to take all 20. So if we don't get back into regular renal rotations this year, that dietitian and I can work on some modules and people taking turns just going in to see what goes on and then teaching some from distance and just, more lectures and observations and probably a few more case studies because renal is important, but that's one of the major things that, a lot of students got shut out on, at least for the fall. And then, like I said, some of the community rotations, but I think we'll be back with some of them after, especially after we get some vaccines, that most of those places will be back together. And I had taken out subscriptions for all the students this year for the EHR Go, and they've gone through, quite a few, probably about 20 of the assessments, and the EHR Go keeps adding things that make it more realistic. They start just in the few months that I wasn't looking at it and all, they added like a group of people and have someone talking like they're actually the patient, talking about their history, their social history, why they're ready to die, or if they want to, fight for their life and all the, real personal things that you would hear or read from patients that you were, trying to get info to do a case study. So I'm planning on adding that in like some every month so we can get through the majority of those assessments. So, in that way it has helped. We had a lot of preceptors in areas that the students wanted more info that got on Zoom. So that was another thing. And I think that was a good thing to have the ability to have everybody still meet for classes. And the couple of students that had their MNT late did their case studies on Zoom and did a real good job too. So it was kind of eye-opening, some of the things that we could do that were still effective. And some of it I want to carry over, with having downtown buildings and paying for parking and all that too, that some things we can do if it's just like a 1 hour meeting and just have that. And, if you're at work, you can get on your phone and listen to, a 1 hour lecture or just one case study type thing, and save our meetings in person for, larger groups of, like 4 or 5 people finishing case studies coming up in a week. So we'll meet for that. But I'm trying to not have people get sick too. So trying not to have too many group things yet, and hope that after the first of the year that we will be more back to normal, but we'll see.
All right. So I'm going to open it up real quick to the students. If anyone has a question that they would like to ask live, you can unmute and go ahead and do that.
I have a question.
Yes, Abby.
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm a junior. So my question is, with so many rotation sites, and interns having so much exposure to different people, do you find that several of your interns end up working at or for one of the sites that they visited in New Orleans?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Or people will call and say, I know you're not looking for a job. That's what happened to one of the students who was working in the hospital, and a dietitian she had met in renal said, why don't we call her and just see if she's interested? She was in no way looking for a job. And so, she ended up getting a job making more money, which is always nice, for someone who was just like a year out, not multiple years, and could could say, okay, I've got 10 years experience, give me the money, you know? And so sometimes it's just like that, you know, they didn't even know them that well, might have just worked with them a few days or 1 week rotation and just said, you know, this is a good personality that'll fit in the place, and, you know, that they'd like to be around. So, you know, the exposure to people is tremendous. You know, we have like about 150 preceptors. That not everybody's going to meet everybody, but, you know, it really is neat to be able to meet so many people. You know, you have a problem. You know, I don't know everything with all these years, and I'll say, oh my God, I've never heard of that, and start Googling, and then say, oh, let me call so-and-so and just see if anybody's had experience with this type of strange disease that only a few people in the whole country end up getting. You know, so you're meeting people and, you know, knowing people that you can count on, and they're glad to help. Most of them. Not every preceptor is wonderful, but, you know, the exposure is more important than the person in a lot of cases. But the people are very important with the job search and the ability to get some jobs, because you don't see a lot of jobs advertised. It depends on the time. And some of these online things are posting jobs that were, you know, listed 3 years ago and have been filled, and some important things don't end up on there, or, you know, they're putting it in different categories, you know, truck driver under a dietitian job and things like that. So the people aspect is very, very important.
All right. Is there any other students that have questions they'd like to ask?
I have another question pertaining to the nutrition leadership track. I was wondering, does the track also accept RDNs or like people who've completed other intern programs? And is there a preference between the DI at Tulane or like other places?
Great question. So we do accept and tend to have around at least one student probably each year who's accepted who is already a registered dietitian. And I would say that sort of tracks with the MPH program overall, where it's a big mix of students who are coming straight into the program from an undergraduate degree, with other students who have worked in the field for a number of years and are coming back to school or changing. Like one student this year who's been a dietitian for a number of years and worked clinically, really wanted to shift into more of a public health, community nutrition focus. So she came back to school, and it's pretty great, I think, to have that mix, because then in the classroom and in our small group, in our learning meetings and things, we have a mix of expertise in the room. So there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning that happens as well. I wouldn't say that there's a preference. We really look for like a variety of backgrounds and experiences to be in the program. And again, there's also not necessarily a preference for students who have completed their internship at Tulane to come into our program. The only sort of caveat with that is that it's likely that if it's a student who is in our program, that that's somebody that we've already been in communication with. So again, just, you know, encourage those who are interested to reach out and connect and have those conversations, letting us know that you're interested. Yeah, great question.
All right.
Even if it's out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Force yourself to do it. I've had students that, you know, they're gonna just start the MPH program and not be ready for internship for 2 years, and make a point in coming to meet me or start conversation immediately when they're first starting the MPH. So, I feel like I know them by the time they get to the point, a year and a half later that they've applied and all that. And then some people, I have no idea who they are until, I actually have their application. And then I probably still don't know some of them until later. So some is a difference in personalities, but, not everybody's outgoing. But, when you're dealing with programs and professional jobs and all, you just need to put yourself out there and make your presence known. Whether it's easy or not, it gets easier. And after you do enough and talk to people that you don't know, it's a lot easier. So, thinking in those terms, you're not just a student anymore. I mean, we always learn and continue to learn, but, as you're transitioning, it's time to be yourself and shine and, say, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for anything that you throw my way. Choose me, and just have that type of personality there, even though you go home and say, oh, I need a stiff drink now. How did I do that? Some people, like I said, is a lot easier than others. But just think, how can you make your presence known to people that could help you? It's not just for that, but it is a whole lot easier when you know a lot of people and you can talk to people easier. And I'm not someone that's easily ever talked to people, and I've had to do so much of that as internship director that it does come easier as time goes on. But I've called and emailed so many people that I have no idea who they are or were, and ended up knowing almost everybody in New Orleans after enough years of doing it. But it's like you got to do what you got to do.
Good advice. All right. I think we have time for one more question from a student, if there is any that want to ask. No brave souls. That's okay. We've had a lot of questions in this episode.
There's been a lot of questions. That's good.
We love lots of questions. All right. Well, I thank you guys so much for being here this evening. Thank you, Marsha. Thank you, Kellia, for joining us. And for those at home who want more information on the program at Tulane, I've provided multiple links for you in the description box below this video. And as always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my page so you never miss a dietetic internship spotlight session. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.